These African-American women traveled the country and took on challenging work during the difficult Jim Crow era, but they were overshadowed by the black men who worked for the same Chicago-based train company, Pullman. Today, a new exhibit here in the city is putting these women in a well-deserved spotlight. Mariam Thaggart had a mission several years ago, so she came here to Chicago's Newberry Library.
I was in the Newberry's fourth floor reading room looking for narratives about the Pullman porters, and I came across this file that had the application of a woman who was applying to be a Pullman maid. And I remember just being startled. Pullman Company had maids?
The Pullman porters.
Indeed, the Pullman porters have been well chronicled. Black men who traveled the country working on the famous Pullman sleeping cars. But Thaggart, a professor of African American literature at the State University of New York, Buffalo, dug deep into the Newberry's archives and discovered the Chicago-based company also employed black women as maids on the trains.
How is it that for so many of us, even those of us who are familiar with the Pullman story and the Pullman porters, that this part of the story has been lost to history?
You know, that was the question that really animated my research. One reason is because of numbers. There were always more porters than maids. And there is a photograph that opens up the exhibit in which we see a single individual Black woman surrounded by 5 Pullman porters. And I think that one image sort of tells a story about the numbers.
The Pullman maids served white women passengers and their children. They styled hair and gave manicures, among other duties. Thaggart found diary entries, an employee's handbook, and pay records from the early 20th century. You can see here some of the average salaries, $79, $64, $99 a month. Their experiences also included racism and mistreatment during a time of Jim Crow segregation, as described in a maid's letter.
She wrote a letter to the Chicago division explaining how a white conductor was being verbally abusive and harassing her. If any items went missing along the train trip, sometimes the women, as well as the porters, were accused of theft.
All of this can be seen in the Newberry Library's exhibition, Handmaidens for Travelers, curated by Professor Mariam Thaggart, who's also the author of a new book, Writing Jane Crow. This little-known story now brought to life.
If you think about the sort of cultural narratives we tell about the U.S., the railroad is really pivotal to the sort of stories we like to say about the United States. But we don't normally or usually include the narratives or the experiences of Black women.
Professor Thaggart returns to the Newberry Library on June 29th to discuss the exhibition and her new book. The event is free and open to the public.